Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And my name is Dr. Simbal Khan, and I welcome you to Tabadlab Policy Roundtable discussion. This discussion is coming at a very important time. It is the lead up to the 22nd meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's Head of State Council in Samarkand, Uzbekistan. And this discussion has been jointly organized by Tabadlab and the Center for International Relations Studies, CIRS, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Uzbekistan. And the focus of the discussion will be to explore Pakistan and Uzbekistan's joint role in promoting regional connectivity and economic prosperity in the SCO region. And also many other issues associated with giving this momentum to the economic cooperation and prosperity in the region. Among the Central Asian republics, the most logical and pertinent country to forge a long-standing strategic, economic, and technical alliance for Pakistan is Uzbekistan. And that has been the case right from the 1990s when the Central Asian countries became independent. Pakistan and Uzbekistan always added momentum to this desire to have that connectivity, which had been missing for the last 70 years when Uzbekistan was part of the Soviet Union. For Pakistan, establishing this relationship would not only serve as the backbone for regional framework, but is directly in line with Pakistan's long-term commercial and economic interests. The route that connects Pakistan to Uzbekistan and the rest of Central Asia lies via Afghanistan. It is, for all geopolitical and geographic purposes, the most effective trade route available, enhancing bilateral and multilateral connectivity, trade, and services. This is reflected in two bilateral agreements signed by both countries this year: the Pakistan-Uzbekistan Transit Trade Agreement, and which became operational on March 3rd, 2022, and the Preferential Trade Agreement, PTA, also signed recently. To capitalize on the opportunities presented by complementary markets, it is the interest of both countries to increase multilateral commitments in diplomacy, trade, and economic cooperation, especially in the light of the SCO framework. As the bridge that connects South and Central Asia region, it is also of paramount importance that any conversation on regional connectivity place stability and connectivity of Afghanistan at the forefront of the agenda. So today's this Tabadlab Policy Roundtable discussion will explore the trajectory and implications of bilateral relationship, but within the larger multilateral SCO framework. And I think multilateral bodies always create this opportunities for bilateral relations to take off within that larger ambit. And this is what I think where SCO priorities are an expected initiative during the coming year. The roundtable discussion is featuring a very high-level profile panel from both countries, and will run for 90 minutes in total. I will, after this brief introduction, introduce all the panelists today, and will be moderated jointly by myself. My name is Dr. Simbal Khan, and I'll also give a brief introduction later about of myself, and also managed by Mr. Daniyar Kurbanov, Director at the Center of International Relations Studies under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Uzbekistan. Just to kind of frame the discussion that we are going to have today, I think we, Tabadlab, and jointly coming with our Uzbek Institute CIRS, has come up with a bunch of guiding questions and guiding points. And I think we will try to, take our discussion forward in those points. The key questions are: what implications will Pakistan and Uzbekistan's cooperation in complementary markets have on regional connectivity and prosperity? What are the implications for bilateral trade relations between Pakistan and Uzbekistan? Afghanistan being the elephant in the room, and it has been an elephant in the room for a very long time, especially last 20 years of war. Will security in the country boost economic connectivity between South Asia and Central Asia, or will connectivity instead lead to security? It's the million-dollar question in the room, and this million-dollar question has billions of dollar question has plagued Pakistan and Uzbek relations and bilateral cooperation for the last, I think, even more than 30 years. And I think this discussion is very important to looking at the current environment coming after a year of the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan. How does Uzbekistan and Pakistan view the prospects of a change or shift in that, or the possibilities of change, and what steps can be taken? And then to what extent Pakistan and Uzbekistan are positioned to benefit from upcoming development, security, and economic coordination initiatives from the SCO. Extremely, again, important for me, because I think SCO stands out as one of those multilateral platforms globally where they are members of SCO countries have some of the most live border and other conflicts going on between Pakistan and India, and also between China and India. Even then, we have seen, despite these really extremely live conflicts between all these three major drivers of SCO, we have seen that there is a strategic desire from all these regional countries to still be and to still be part of SCO. And we have seen remarkably that the SCO platform has expanded despite and in spite of all these conflicts, which are quite live. So this will be interesting to hear a little bit more about that. Aside from bilateral trade, what other areas of cooperation are both countries positioned to engage in? And also, sixth point, how can the two countries use their current leadership positions, Uzbekistan's rotating presidency at the SCO and Pakistan's position as chair of the G77 this year, to the benefit of moving forward? And I think these two, we will, just to talk a little bit about the flow of today's session, I will moderate the first part of the session, and then we'll hand over to the moderation duties to Mr. Rahmatullah Nurimbitov. To Mr. Daniyar Kurbanov, and he will handle the moderation from the Uzbek side. The half of the panel discussion will be moderated by him. With these words, very quickly, a brief introduction to the panelists and participants. I will introduce myself first. My name is Dr. Simbal Khan. I am a conflict and security expert and an academic who has worked with South Central Asia region conflict and security for the longest time. My PhD had focused 10 years ago, focused on Uzbekistan's security framework and the role of Afghanistan and trans-border militant movements. I have expertise on studying on the IMU when IMU came out, and I still have continuing engagement and focus on trans-border militant movements, which kind of move around in the whole region. Currently, I work very closely with the UN agencies, and especially UNDP, looking at Pakistan's stabilization issues in both conflict and stabilization dynamics. I'm heading a couple of projects there in Balochistan as well as in KP, and those projects also look at the movement of trans-border militant actors, including TTP and including other Central Asian and Chinese militant movements. And I think the other panelists I will start introducing. Dr. Mayad Yusuf, as you all may be aware, was Pakistan's national security advisor between 2019 and April 22, a very good friend and colleague for a long time. He has led the process of formulating Pakistan's first national security policy and responsible for advising the government on all aspects of national security. Dr. Mayad Yusuf has held positions as Associate Vice President of the Asia Center at the U.S. Institute of Peace and as a research fellow at the Padre Center in Boston University. I will move on to introducing Mr. Abdul Razak Dawood. is a former advisor for commerce and investment for the government of Pakistan. Very recently, he was the advisor for the government of Pakistan and was previously a director at the State Bank of Pakistan. Mr. Dawood is the founder of Descon, a company operating in the engineering, power, and chemical sectors. He is most importantly also one of the founders and first chairman of Pakistan Business Council, a forum on economic policies. And if anybody who has not seen Pakistan Business Council's website, I would definitely recommend that. I myself have been following and taking a lot of support and help in my work from the trade-related work and research that the Pakistan Business Council does. Coming to Mr. Rahmatullah Nurimbetov, who is our friend and colleague from Uzbekistan, is an expert in international relations. He has spent his career working on regional connectivity and enhancing the Shanghai Cooperation Organization interdependence in the region. Currently, he is the national coordinator of Uzbekistan on SCO affairs and at the forefront of all of Tashkent's SCO-related activities. Welcome, Mr. Nurimbetov. I would now next introduce our next panelist from Uzbekistan. His Excellency Furkat Siddiqov is a career diplomat. Ambassador Furkat Siddiqov has served as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Uzbekistan to Pakistan in 2015 and 2020. Welcome, Ambassador Saab. And since May 2020, he has served as the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Uzbekistan. A very warm welcome to the panel. And finally, His Excellency Daniyar Kurbanov is the Director of the Center of International Relations Studies, CIRS, today the partner institution for this policy dialogue, under the Foreign Ministry of Uzbekistan. He was Deputy Director of CIRS from August 2017 to April 2019. He has previously worked as Deputy Director of the Institute of Strategic Studies and International Studies under the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan from the period of 2008 to 2012. His research interests cover the field of international relations, Central Asia, China and Russia, and world economic trends. Thank you very much and really welcome Okay, so I think I've just been informed by our conflict organizers, our panel organizers, that Mr. Furkat is not present. He sent his paper.
No.
Yes?
He is present, but he is to leave right after his presentation.
Okay, so thank you for this clarification. I've informed the team. Thank you very much. Now, just to the program agenda, I will now ask, I think after this brief introduction, Mr. Furkat Siddiqov to pick up on some of these important themes that we have mentioned in the questions and speak for about 5 to 6 minutes to give his perspective on that. And then we will go to Mr. Abdulrazak Dawood's comments on some of these themes that we've discussed today. And after that, we'll have a brief session of about 5 to 10 minutes of discussing these points by the other discussants. And then I will hand over the proceedings to Mr. Daniyar Kurbanov, and he can introduce the other discussants and lead the discussion forward. So with these words, I will invite Mr. Furkat.
Thanks so much, Excellency. Thanks so much, Excellency Abdulrazak Dawood Saab and Excellency Mayad Yusuf Saab. I'm very glad to see you, both of you. And we miss you in Uzbekistan. We're looking forward to see you in Tashkent, inshallah. Respected colleagues, first of all, let me express my deepest condolences for the loss of the livelihood of unprecedented flood in Pakistan. We in Uzbekistan share the grief of the people of Pakistan in these difficult days of loss. As you know that last week, by the order of the President of Uzbekistan, Uzbek government sent more than 40 metric tons of the humanitarian aid to our Pakistani brothers. In these difficult days, Uzbekistan will support you, and always you can rely on Uzbekistan support. Dear colleagues, it's an honor to me to participate in this webinar on bilateral relations between Uzbekistan and Pakistan, always upcoming ASEO summit in Samarkand. I would like to take this opportunity to convey my sincerest greetings to the distinguished participants from Pakistan side, who have made great contribution to the development of the Uzbekistan-Pakistan relationship. As you know, that Uzbekistan always had mutual understanding and comprehensive political dialogue with Pakistan. We're supporting each other within the international organization, and we have common views on regional issues and security issues. But now, the development of the trade and economic cooperation with Pakistan is priority of the Uzbekistan foreign policy and foreign trade economic policy. The state visit of the President of Uzbekistan to Pakistan on March 2022 opened new prospects of the expansion mutual cooperation within our countries in trade and economic investment, transport, tourism areas, as well as the level of the respective regions. Now, two regions of Uzbekistan very deeply cooperating with the two regions of Pakistan. Especially, I would like to mention about the Fergana Valley of Uzbekistan have very good comprehensive cooperation with the Punjab province of the Pakistan. During the visit, about the 10 documents on cooperation with different fields we signed, including agreement of preferential trade, which will expand opportunity to enhance volume of trade between our countries. Now we're planning to enhance our trade turnover up to 5 million upcoming years, but after 5 years, we are having the task to reach more than $1 billion. And I would like to say that last 3-4 years, we enhanced our trade between Pakistan more than 4 times. Now Uzbekistan, biggest trade and investment partner of Pakistan. And for that, I would like to say thank you to Razak Dawood Sahu, because he had, tremendous job to enhance our business cooperation between our countries and introduce private sector of two countries to each other. Thank you, Razak Sahu. Given that export of Uzbekistan and Pakistan have a similar structure, which includes mainly textile, agricultural products, in order to increase volume of the mutual trade, it's necessary to enhance our cooperation in establishing joint ventures. I would like to say that according our analysis, that economy of Uzbekistan, economy of Pakistan, they could complement each other. And now we are seeing that we've seen the tendency that in the world, the traditional supply routes are not working well with the situation in the Europe. So now we have to have some kind of joint cooperation to support each other and to jointly we can access to the third country markets. For that, I think that we have very good opportunities to cooperate in the field of textile industry, pharmaceutical, and leather production. And we can jointly make joint products to get access to the third countries markets. Of course, Uzbekistan could be gateway for Pakistan business to reach the Eurasian market, which more than 350 million population. Of course, for us, Pakistan could be a hub to get access to not only South Asian market, but at the same time, we can easily through Karachi or Gwadar, we can reach the Middle East markets. Taking account the development of the pharmaceutical industry, Uzbekistan, a promising direction cooperation is established joint ventures on the pharmaceutical industry. As you know that from 2021, Uzbekistan received status of the GSP Plus, which will help us to now we can more than 6,000 goods we can send to European market without any taxations. We know that Pakistan, in this case, we know that Pakistan has the same status or more than 10 years back. So for us, it will be very useful to learn experience of the Pakistan, our brother Pakistan, how to beneficially use GSP Plus status. Even this area, we can work together. One of the main obstacles between our countries is logistic problem, and we don't have direct connections. So in this case, Uzbekistan, now we initiated the building the railways from Uzbek city terminus, Mazar-e Sharif, Kabul, Peshawar, and we believe that is a game changer project which help connect Central Asia with South Asia through Afghanistan. It will help us to turn Afghanistan into the bridge which could connect the two very important regions. I would like to tell you that, recently I paid visit Middle East countries, and the Middle East countries are paying huge attention to this project because, they now many experts saying about the upcoming food security problems, and we're facing the problems with, traditional food supply routes are not working well. So in this case, even Middle East countries are interested to establish this connection with Central Asia, and through this corridor to supply goods and foods to Middle East countries. According as per this road, railroad links about 600 kilometers will help us to reduce transportation of the goods from Uzbekistan to Pakistan from 35 days up to 3 or 5 days. I would like to mention that even now the corridor from Afghanistan to Pakistan to Peshawar, I would like to thank you to Raza Saab again. We had the chance to open this first, ceremony of the first trucks come to Peshawar through Afghanistan last year during our visit to Pakistan. Now every week, more than 10, 20 trucks from Uzbekistan going through Afghanistan to Peshawar, and they're reaching the Port Karachi. So now road connection is working well. And it's helping us to enhance our trade and business connection between Pakistan. I would like to tell you that now the trucks from Uzbekistan reaching Peshawar and Karachi maximum during the 4 days. So I think that this corridor will give us new opportunity to enhance trade between Uzbekistan, not only between Uzbekistan and Pakistan, but I believe that it will help us to enhance our cooperation, inter-regional cooperation between Central Asia and South Asia. And in the future, we can reach through Port Karachi. We are planning to reach Middle East markets. An important maintaining the peace in Afghanistan and stability will help us to enhance our cooperation. We're having very mutual and trusted dialogue with Pakistan on these regional issues, and especially we are having very good cooperation on Afghanistan. At the same time, we are having the good cooperation in the field of security and military technical cooperation. We are very interested to enhance our cooperation with Pakistan. I would like to say thank you to Mayad Yusuf because of his efforts on 2021. We signed agreement on creation of the Joint Commission on Security, which are now helping us to coordinate our efforts on regional issues and combating international terrorism and the drug trafficking. For Uzbekistan, it's interested to cooperate with Pakistan in the defense and military production. We know that Pakistan has very good defense and military production. I think that is one of the promising areas we can work together. And again, I am very happy that in the last years we had a very good cooperation on training of military officers and military staff in the military educational system, universities of Pakistan. We are very interested to enhance this kind of cooperation. Of course, one of the important areas of our future cooperation could be cooperation in the field of the cultural exchanging, people-to-people cooperation, and the tourism. Alhamdulillah, we're sharing the same history, we're sharing the same religion and traditions. In this case, we are very interested to exchange culture program between Uzbekistan and Pakistan. Now we are working to restore the flights between Uzbekistan and Pakistan. We offered to PIA start fly from Islamabad to Tashkent, and Uzbek Airways now planning to restore flights from Tashkent to Lahore. So I think that we now having the good dynamic of our cooperation. Our trade is enhanced. We believe that it's not enough. We have a lot of unlocked potential, and we have to work together. And just in after a couple of weeks, we will have the ASEO summit in Samarkand. Inshallah, it will be a very historical summit. As you know, that more than 14 leaders of the countries will take part in this summit, and which are demonstrating that ASEO becoming one of the leading and one of the important international organization in the world, and it's good again. It's showing the success of the presence of Uzbekistan in ASEO. Thanks so much. Uzbekistan, Pakistan, Dost Zindabad.
information in flagging both the sides of economic as well as some of the security related elements and dimensions of Uzbekistan and Pakistan's relationship. I will now ask Daud Saab to kind of give his comments, and while he's giving his comments, it'll be really great to hear his perspective on some of the economic related new opportunities and new frameworks that Mr. Furqat has highlighted in his comments, and to take it up and see that, how Pakistan is looking at that future potential, especially the railway mentioned, especially the transit trade, and also the complementarity on the economic side, where we can work together on the GSP plus that Uzbekistan has become a member, also how we can take that forward and links with the Middle East. In our the second session, when Mr. Mayad Yusuf comes up, Dr. Yusuf comes with his comments, I would request him to talk a little bit more on the security side of some of the comments that Furqat Saab has mentioned. How does that change? What are the potential? And also to kind of flag a little bit more on the counterterrorism cooperation potential there, in that context, and especially given the context of terrorism and counterterrorism problems and maybe shortcomings in Afghanistan on that, which we are noticing, and how Uzbekistan and Pakistan can cooperate more in kind of supporting the region in that. With these comments, I would ask and request Daud Saab to take the floor for his comments. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me okay.
Yes.
And Mr. Furqat Saab, brother, I'm so happy to see you and hear you again. My take on this is that the relationship between Uzbekistan and Pakistan has been very, very cordial from the time that Mr. Umar Zakov came to Pakistan in 2020. We have progressed very, very well. And as Mr. Furqat mentioned, a lot of the things have already started to get in place. We have an FTA agreement, we have a transit trade agreement. We are in the process of integrating the custom procedures. We talked about air connectivity. We're talking about banking facilities. So a lot of work has been done, but a lot more still has to be done. One area that was not mentioned, and I would like to put raise the point, and that is, in order to facilitate trade, we did discuss with your trade ministry and your foreign ministry about the Uzbekistan giving Pakistan storage facilities in Termez, and we, Pakistan, giving storage facilities in Gwadar or Bin Qasim to facilitate this. The other thing is that we also discussed that we want to make Termez a hub for trade. So that means all the goods, whether they're from Afghanistan, whether they're from Pakistan, that becomes the center. And that is one thing that we're all looking for. His Excellency mentioned about the railways. We support it emphatically. If we want to get the trade up to a much higher level, we all agreed when we met in Tashkent that trucking alone will not be able to do it, and we have to have that railway going through Afghanistan, and it is certainly a priority for Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and also for Pakistan. One of our theme is that we want a win-win situation. Uzbekistan, Central Asian Republic, Afghanistan They must gain from increased trade just the same way as we in Pakistan want to get the benefits of free movement of goods. For us, Central Asian republics is a very, very good market and a market that complements, particularly in Uzbekistan. We feel that by getting into Uzbekistan, we have an access to Russia and from Russia to Europe. Yes, it is under difficulties at the moment, but we're looking in the long-term future. For Uzbekistan, Pakistan gives them the field of going into not only the Middle East, but also Africa and into Asia. So this whole trade is a win-win situation. We talked about, we know that the most effective trade route is through Karachi into the Central Asian republics. So this is an area that we're all working at. And as Mr. Furkat mentioned, that already the trade has increased manyfold, but it still needs to be increased further. On the investment side, where the two countries complement is in the pharma industry. We were talking at that time, myself and the Ministry of Trade, about attracting Uzbek investment in Pakistan in the area of manufacturing tractors in Pakistan, tractors, agricultural implements, and that was it's an opening. Our textile people are very keen to get associated with Uzbekistan, and of course the whole area of tourism. As soon as the air connectivity takes place, I'm confident that tourism will increase. Dr. Simbal, you mentioned about GSP Plus. GSP Plus is a very important benefit that is there. And myself and the Deputy Prime Minister, Omar Zakov, we did talk about it, but we both said, let's not do that right now. Let's put all the building blocks in place. Those building blocks are in place. This is an area that we can certainly look at because it's beneficial to both. So what are the key challenges before us? Dr. Simbal, you did say, I like the word that you've used, that Afghanistan is the elephant in the room. That is the area where we have to concentrate. And because, and the challenges are Afghans' relations with the Central Asian Republic, Afghans' relationship with Pakistan. One thing that you mentioned, and I feel that increasing connectivity will lead to better security rather than improve the security and then connectivity will improve. But I leave that to Dr. Mayad Yusuf, who is far greater expert in this area. So those are the main things that I am actually very optimistic because the way we left the situation in March of this year, when the president of Uzbekistan came to Pakistan, we had wonderful meetings. We met the Uzbek investors, they met ours. And I know that many of our investors are taking their investment into Uzbekistan very, very seriously. And there is no issue of if the relationship improves. The relationship with Uzbekistan is excellent. It's just we've got to slowly, patiently put all the jigsaw pieces together, and there will be a substantial increase in investment and trade. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Daud Saab, for these extremely important and pertinent comments that you've made and some of the questions that we've raised, and also Mr. Furkat's comments that preceded you. I think we'll just open the meeting up for a brief discussion, and please, anyone who wants to add on to any of these comments, please, all the participants, it's open for you to kind of add your comments to that. Just to flag a few things, and basically my own question to both the speakers as well as the other panelists. Daud Saab has mentioned, and also Mr. Furkat mentioned very clearly, and I agree with this dynamic, that the only thing that is not allowing this relationship between Pakistan and Uzbekistan, with all the complementarities that have been mentioned before, the only thing is the bind with the lack of the basic ground macro level infrastructure, lack of that. How do you connect these two, kind of, two countries together through a very, very difficult area, which is Afghanistan, which has been in the midst of war for all that. And in that connection, you've talked about the railway, and of course Uzbekistan's own plans about the railways. I'm really happy to hear that. I would like to hear from the various participants at this point, what are the realities of how, I know we've heard from the CPEC side that China is interested in the next kind of phase of CPEC to invest in the ML1, which is the upgrading Pakistan's own railway system and doing this connectivity. And then, of course, Uzbekistan is looking at expanding its railway system. We also realize that Pakistan itself and Uzbekistan, to a certain extent, has issues with financing, and we are a middle income countries with growing populations and a lot of other. Are there possibilities of multilateral other donors, whether ADB and others? We know the Chinese are involved in that. How will this happen? How to expand that? With these little few interjections, I open the panel for discussions and comments from everyone else, and then I will hand over to my Uzbek colleague to take on the rest of the discussion. Thank you. Anyone?
So, okay, then
I can
have to
maybe.
So that's why I will try to give you a short answer, because unfortunately, I just came back from Samarkand, special for this event, and we are all busy with Samarkand now. There will be a summit. I mentioned that more than 40 leaders of 40 countries will come to Samarkand, inshallah. And again, Samarkand becoming the center of international policy. So we all are busy. And yes, I think that this railways project is very important. Why? Because, first of all, I already mentioned that right now, the goods trucks are already going through Afghanistan to Peshawar every week. Now we have approximately almost 1 million metric ton goods are crossing through Afghanistan to Pakistan. And it's indicating that these are functional roads. So despite the situation in Afghanistan, goods are very easily and securely reaching the Pakistan. It means that these railways could be successful. And together with Pakistan and Afghanistan and the other countries, we're now working on the establishing group which will go to Afghanistan for feasibility studies. After feasibility studies, we will make some homework. Then we will engage the international organization. We know that I had a meeting with different kind of international organization, financial organization. They are paying interest to this project. I already mentioned that I've been in Middle East countries, and they are interested to this project again. As you know, that now world is changing. Unfortunately, we are facing the new challenge, the new problems. and the traditional roads and transit roads not working well, and we are facing the problem of the traditional supply routes are not working well. So we need a diversification of the transit corridors, and I think that this, let's say, Trans-Afghan corridor could be one of the promising corridors, which easily connects Central Asia with South Asia and the Middle East. Then I already mentioned that we're working with the Afghan side right now. The understanding that this project, very important project, very important economic project, because these railways will help to Afghanistan, transfer Afghanistan into the international transit bridge. And it will be beneficial for Afghanistan because always railways will create new jobs, new opportunities, and it will help us. As you know, that President of Uzbekistan said that Afghanistan is an integral part of Central Asia, and it will help us to reintegrate Afghanistan to economic and business cooperation between Central Asia and South Asia. In this case, we are very appreciated support of Pakistan. Yes, the situation is in Afghanistan. Everyone knows what kind of situation, but we're working closely with our Pakistani brothers. We're working with the Afghan side about this situation. Yes, there's a challenge, but I can tell you one interesting thing that I had some discussion with the truck drivers, which are crossing between the Pakistan and Uzbekistan through Afghanistan. They're saying that now it's becoming more easy than before. There's now less corruption. For example, before they spent more than approximately $5,000 to reach Pakistan, not only because of taxation, but because of corruption too. But right now, any trucks reaching Pakistan border approximately for like 2,000, something like that. So they're everyone saying that there's less corruption. Now it's easy, the registration easy, and they're getting the Pakistan more easy, and goods are secured. Nobody touching them. Everyone traveling through Afghanistan very easily. Yes, there are some challenges, of course. We are not naive. We are understanding what's going on in Afghanistan. Then last events in Kabul are showing that, yes, still the terroristic threats in Afghanistan, unfortunately. But we are very well working with our partners, with the regional partners, and with Pakistan. I know that we established Group 6, which are Pakistan member of this group. It's a kind of regional approach to get help to our Afghan brothers to establish new, secure and stable country. So we believe that it's functional project, and inshallah it will be a game changer, and it again will help us to restore historical justice, to connect Uzbekistan with Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Furqat, for these comments. Anyone else from the Pakistan side to kind of add on some of the points raised by Mr. Furqat, or from the Uzbek side before I hand over? Okay, thank you so much. I think with these remarks, I can hand over. We're already a little ahead of our time. I'll hand over today's ceremony and today's panel discussion moderation duties to Mr. Daniyar Kurbanov to kind of raise some of the questions that were highlighted in the whole concept note of this panel discussion, and invite the other speakers to speak. Thank you. Handing over to you, Mr. Daniyar Kurbanov.
Thank you, Dr. Simbal Khan. Good afternoon, distinguished speakers, dear friends. First of all, let me express my gratitude to our Pakistani partners for their active cooperation in organizing our joint roundtable. We have just listened with great interest to our high-ranking speakers, Deputy Foreign Minister of Uzbekistan, Furqat Siddiqov, and former advisor to the Prime Minister of Pakistan on Commerce and Investment, Abdul Razak Dawood. In their speeches, their assessments were given of the state and prospects for the development of Uzbek-Pakistani relations, including joint projects to promote regional connectivity. It is also important to note that we are currently at the finish line of the chairmanship of Uzbekistan in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which will end with the summit of leaders of the countries in the ancient and eternally young city of Samarkand. As is known, the leaders of all 8 SCO countries, including Pakistan, as well as observer countries and a number of invited heads of states, are expected to attend the summit. This will undoubtedly enhance the significance of the upcoming multilateral forum, which will be, by the way, the first summit in recent years with the physical participation of all the leaders of the countries, SCO countries. Of particular interest to us is Pakistan's view of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the possibilities of strengthening cooperation between our two countries within the framework of the SCO. In this regard, the first floor of this session is given to Dr. Mayad Yusuf, former National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister of Pakistan and renowned expert on national security and foreign policy of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. So, Dr. Mayad Yusuf, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank the organizers for this opportunity. I want to welcome the excellencies from Uzbekistan and once again say that it's very good to see some old friends and some new colleagues. We're also looking forward to seeing you, Mr. Kurbanov, in Pakistan very soon. And I look forward to getting a chance to speak to you in person as well. If you allow me, rather than going directly to the question, what I want to do based on what I've heard so far is first lay out very quickly. I know there's paucity of time, but lay out very quickly the approach that Pakistan has taken and is taking towards connectivity. And for that, I think the starting point is that Pakistan put out a national security policy last year and started a conversation, or rather codified a conversation. It was the first South Asian country to have this policy out in public, and codified the conversation about geoeconomics as a paradigm that we focus on in tandem, of course, with geostrategy. This geoeconomic paradigm is essentially meant to signal Pakistan's clear focus on its economy and economic security of its people as its primary objective, national objective, one of the primary national objectives going forward. In the geoeconomic paradigm, we talked about 3 pillars. First one was development partnerships with key countries of the world. And the second substantive pillar was connectivity, using Pakistan's location as a geo-economic asset to work as a trade and transit hub and tie that in by becoming a production hub for the extended region. In Pakistan, we've always talked about a geostrategically important location, which we have, alhamdulillah. But the geo-economic approach to using the location may not have been as front and center. And that's the conversation that we have a consensus on as a country in terms of where we want to move. When we look at geoeconomics and when we look at this idea of connectivity, we very quickly realize that unfortunately, Pakistan does not live in an ideal regional environment, or far from it, actually in a very suboptimal regional environment. Why do I say that? We've got a western border where we've got 2 countries who are globally either isolated or sanctioned one way or another. You've got Afghanistan and then you've got Iran. neither of our making, but we have to deal with that reality. Then we've got an eastern neighbor with which we've had very bad relations, unfortunately, over our entire history. And despite our efforts to create normalization based on principles of sovereign equality and reciprocity, we haven't been able to achieve that because of issues on the other side of the border. We've got our northern border with China, which is a relationship that has thrived. CPEC is a great example, but there are many other facets to that relationship. Apart from that, when you look at Pakistan's borders, we have a fairly challenged environment in terms of the neighborhood. And that is why the key priority when it comes to the extended neighborhood for Pakistan has been Central Asia, and within that, Uzbekistan is an absolutely critical player. Razak Daud Saab, my senior colleague in government, but otherwise a well-known private sector entity in Pakistan, he's spoken before me. He put his heart and soul into this. I remember me and him having multiple conversations. In fact, both of us went together, if I remember correctly, to the border to welcome the first batch of trucks that came from Uzbekistan. And then I remember a conversation which I want to relay to the audience. When this question of how do you know that you are moving in the right direction in terms of connectivity and a geo-economic paradigm. And the example I gave was that at that border, we've got a very important historic museum / military sort of installation compound, where you've got virtually the entire world's important leaders who visited one time or another in the past 30, 40 years, given the importance of Afghanistan and the great game and all of that, and much before that as well, when the British were around. And the point I made was that when we see pictures of commerce ministers and finance ministers and trade ministers and investment ministers of the neighborhood and the extended neighborhood on these walls, we would know that we have moved in the right direction as Pakistan and the region in terms of geoeconomics. And so with that in mind, I think it's just a no-brainer on how important Uzbekistan is for Pakistan and this equation. Razak Saab has spoken to some of the trade issues. Let me just attend to the security and then this idea of the SCO and the forum, since the moderators have asked me to do that. You know, we always think of security as a chicken and egg problem when it comes to economy and connectivity. But there is a very interesting fact here that we must not forget, which is that the hard security issue that everybody talked about when it came to Afghanistan, and everybody pointed to as the reason why we cannot move forward with connectivity of the kind that we've talked about, has disappeared. We've just heard from our worthy colleague, Excellency Deputy Foreign Minister of Uzbekistan, talk about some ease in travel. Yes, there are many issues, but frankly, the physical security issue is no longer as big as it was till 15th of August last year. So I think we need to move away from this chicken and egg question, because sometimes, if I were to be honest, it's also used as an excuse when things on the economic front are not moving fast enough. I think the real questions now we need to answer are about international involvement, are about international appetite for allowing and facilitating this connectivity, is about financing. So some of the major connectivity projects, they are not suffering from lack of physical security right now. They're suffering because the financiers have pulled out, the contractors have pulled out, programs have halted because of sanctions. It's really that international element that I think now we need to speak to, we need to have a conversation with, to see how we can move this connectivity agenda forward, which frankly is for the betterment of the millions and millions of, hundreds of millions of people who live in this region. South and Central Asia, and not only about a particular country or particular government or particular regime. In this arena, I don't want to discount the security issue, but I do think it is we are at a place where we can do much more in terms of connectivity, given the current security environment. Pakistan has put up a fence on its western border that's near complete. The idea of the fence was never to block movement or to prevent human and trade transactions. The idea was to prevent illegal, illicit movement that causes harm on either side of the border, but then facilitate the formal border crossings. And that's exactly what Pakistan has worked towards. I mean, there were countless hours spent on making sure that we get into agreements, bilateral with Afghanistan, but then bilateral with Central Asian countries, Uzbekistan being the top priority, but also trilateral. And we did to facilitate trade. And then a number of avenues that were opened up. We've just talked about trade, cross-stuffing, areas for Uzbekistan and other countries in Pakistan, and reciprocally facilitating all the sort of border movement, etc. Even forthcoming on some of the areas where traditionally security was an issue. So that piece, I think, is in place. We've now got to move forward on the international engagement. Tied to this is the question of fora. Which forums do we use? Where does this conversation happen, and what mechanisms exist? Unfortunately, virtually all the forums that discuss Afghanistan in the world are not linked to the conversation on connectivity. Either we are talking about a very important humanitarian issue, or there's conversations about human rights issues, or the tensions between the Afghan state and some of the Western countries. But where does connectivity fit in is a challenge. And I feel that SCO may be one organization that can do more to have this conversation. We already have multiple bodies and committees in SCO that look at these kind of things, have also taken up this issue. If we can divorce ourselves a little bit from the pure security conversation, which is important and must happen in the right forums, I think SCO can do more. And given that we have such an important summit and continuing conversations, I think there is really a great opportunity here where SCO can take more burden and more of the lead in doing this. I'll also inform the audience that we have with Uzbekistan a pioneer joint security protocol, a joint security commission between the two countries that we set up early last year. And the whole idea there is to look at these issues of security comprehensively, to ensure traditional security outcomes that are beneficial to both countries, but also the comprehensive security dialogue where we actually facilitate each other, including on the connectivity agenda, because Pakistan, for one, as I told you, has defined geoeconomics and economic security as the key pillar of our national security. Now, one piece of, shall I say, warning or caution that I want to put up. I think there is an elephant in the room, and I'm not one to shy away from putting that on the table. We've got a increasingly acute great power competition that is taking place in the world, and our region is in the fold of that. Geographically, we cannot avoid or hide away from or ignore that there is a growing global contestation between great powers. The absolute necessity for Uzbekistan and Pakistan is to ensure that we don't become casualties in the great geopolitical arena. Rather, we are positioned, when we talk about connectivity, geoeconomics, geostrategy, key locations, we are positioned to act as the melting pots for positive global economic interests. We are positioned to talk to the world, to try and bring in competing interests and allow them to invest economically in our countries, to invest in connectivity projects. Let's assume one country wants to do a north-south grid, wants to extend their infrastructure. Another country can come in and talk about grid from another place to Pakistan. We need investment in infrastructure, investment in digital connectivity, and investment and economic connectivity. These three areas. whichever country with the resources wants to come in and invest, we should definitely see how we can make that feasible, keeping the political sensitivities, of course, of both Uzbekistan and Pakistan in mind. But the caution is that it's very easy to fall prey to a kind of environment where we become casualties if the contestation increases. Rather, we should be putting ourselves out and should be recognized as countries and as a sub-region that is willing to collaborate with all to get the kind of economic muscle and machinery going that will benefit our people, but also benefit those larger powers who want to join hands. Finally, let me just say, I am more optimistic than the Uzbekistan-Pakistan relationship than many others. And one of the key reasons for that is the commitment of the leadership of Uzbekistan that has been there for Pakistan, and the commitment of the leadership and state of Pakistan that has been there for Uzbekistan throughout, regardless of the time and the politics in any country. I think we're two countries who see a common future. I think given all the challenges that we know, we must talk about the solutions. And for one, I feel that security and Dr. Simbal had mentioned counterterrorism. These have to be discussed in the right fora, but I really don't think that those kind of impending or sort of impediments that hold back everything. I think there is room to move forward. We've got to get the international community on board and work together. Once again, thank the organizers for inviting me. Thank the excellencies from Uzbekistan and also our colleague, the Deputy Foreign Minister, for his condolences. Loss of life on the floods. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mayad Yusuf. In your speech, you raised a number of important, especially important issues about our, first of all, national security policy of Pakistan and also about geo-economic concept of Pakistan, of which you were one of the main authors, and also about very complicated regional environment for Pakistan and other countries of the region. And we, of course, support your point of view that Uzbekistan and Central Asian countries are very important for Pakistan to implement its regional connectivity vision. And we also appreciate your point of view about Pakistan security situation. And we also believe in Uzbekistan that Pakistan is not only a source of threats, but very big source of opportunities, especially for regional connectivity. And also Shanghai Cooperation Organization's forthcoming summit in Samarkand will be a very good platform for candid discussion on these issues, and we hope also we are quite optimistic about the future of our bilateral relations. Thank you very much. So the next speaker is one of our country's competent specialists on the affairs of the Shanghai Organization. National Coordinator of Uzbekistan for SCO Affairs, Dr. Rahmatullah Nurmatov, will make a presentation on the Uzbek chairmanship, its main priorities and initiatives, as well as the features of the Samarkand Summit. Dr. Nurmatov, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Dr. Kurbanov, Ambassador. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be the part of this very important and timely webinar with high-ranking participants, and I closely following the speakers' comments, topics, as well as on the SEO. I'm fully agree with the calculations and assessments of Dr. Yusuf on that SEO should be the important and very useful platform both for Uzbekistan and Pakistan to push joint initiatives on connectivity, digital transformation, investments, and on security as well. And we have, I think, the SEO is the very platform, multilateral platform, to discuss the broad issues on regional connectivity and beyond. And in this regard, we note that SEO is contributing, highly contributing to strengthening our brotherly and friendly bilateral cooperations too, because, we, as a national coordinator of Uzbekistan on the SEO affairs, I can note that there is no contradicting or conflicting interests within two countries on the agenda of the SEO. Moreover, we are on the same line in pushing, in giving new impulse, new impetus to the SEO agenda in a changing world. Because if we will follow the last tendencies of internal development in this organization, we can who are actively promoting connectivity strategies. Moreover, we are jointly putting on the agenda new directions for the cooperation, multilateral cooperation within the SEO countries. I can highlight this in this regard, the common initiatives on poverty diminishing. We together with Pakistan, we are giving new so-called social face to the SEO, and I'm very happy to be the part of this very good process of strengthening partnership between two countries on the multilateral level too. And we are waiting for the SEO summit in Samarkand, and taking this opportunity, I would like to express once again to our Pakistani colleagues our gratitude for support. We feel this support during the whole time of our chairmanship. My colleague from Pakistan is supporting me very much on each initiatives on which is putting by Uzbekistan on the agenda during this chairmanship. We are entering the summit with very good package of decisions and documents elaborated during our chairmanship. We are expecting more than 30 documents being signed by the leaders, and let me concentrate on several issues in this regard. We fully understand and accept that despite its very good achievements, is facing new challenges in the circumstance of changing international and regional security, economic, and political environment. We think that for successful transformation and the growth of this young organization in a new area, we should renovate our vision. What should be the ACO and what could done? These questions are reflected in our SEO concept of our chairmanship and the priorities which we are promoting and pushing forward during our chairmanship. These are the very fields which we are talking on this webinar too. These are connectivity, trade, investment, digital transformation, innovation, and green economy. First time within the SEO, we hope that we will have the concept on economic and transport connectivity, which will be assigned by the leaders during this summit. It is a very good step forward because we know that some countries are not the SEO. Despite this fact, we are happy that we can come to the summit with this very good concept of cooperation. And once again, we are very thankful for Pakistan and friends which support us in this regard. Let me highlight 3 points more on upcoming summit. The first is, as was mentioned by our Deputy Minister, Mr. Siddiqov, that this summit will be so-called mini Eurasian. We can say that it is a very mini Eurasian summit because we are expecting 14 foreign leaders between our alongside with our president inviting besides of 7 members of the SCO and 3 observer countries, as well as president of Turkey, president of Azerbaijan, president of Turkmenistan, and prime minister of Armenia. That shows that SCO is a growing. SCO is an open international regional organization, which is whose goal is cooperation, not geopolitical competition. And the message which will put forward Uzbek chairmanship is that the SCO is a multilateral platform for cooperation, not documents in our in our events which we are organizing, which have been organized since the Uzbekistan took the chairmanship last year. And we are coming with 3 package of very good documents to the Samarkand summit. First, these are new conceptual documents on connectivity, on intra-regional trade, on digital transformation, and so on. The second, we are coming with a very good decisions on expanding of the SCO participants. Iran will sign the memorandum of obligations with the SCO Secretariat, and I will mean the entering of the SCO to the new area of intra-regional cooperation, because we are opening in Samarkand the gates for the SCO toward the Middle East. Why I'm saying that? Because alongside with Iran, we are giving the partner status of partner for dialogue for several Arabic countries. Among them are Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, we are considering and examining the applications by Bahrain, Kuwait, and United Arab Emirates, and I hope that Samarkand can be the avenue for taking these very important decisions on the future of organizations. The third one is hoping that this will be realized in Samarkand, the decision of the leaders on improving of the activity of the SCO in the light of circumstance. We are entering the SCO. I mean, the SCO is entering to the third decade of its development in the age of fundamental changes in the international system, and as a responsible, I would say, responsible regional institution, it should be adapted to the realities of the changing world too. And that's why I think this decision, the implementation of this decision, will lead the SCO to new directions and more cooperative directions of multilateral partnership. I am fully convinced that Uzbekistan and Pakistan will continue on pushing together decisions during coming years, because, as I noted, we are pushing forward within the SCO jointly common positions on strategic issues of the organizations. And let me just highlight one finishing remarks. On the avenue, because Samarkand is a special place for intra-regional connectivity. It has been playing this role since 3,000 years ago, and I think and we hope that Samarkand will once again demonstrate its capacity and the role to renovate its role as a crucial point for promoting connectivity in a coming new era. And we are relying on our Pakistani brothers and friends that in the process of Samarkand in coming years. Thank you so much.
Dr. Nurimbetov, you've just highlighted in detail the main activities and achievements of the SCO during the presidency of Uzbekistan, and you also highlighted the potential and current very active state of our interaction with Pakistan in the framework of SCO. With the active participation of all member states, it was possible to successfully use the huge institutional potential of the Shanghai Organization to promote practical cooperation. And you mentioned that during the summit, it is expected to sign 3 packages of very important documents on concept of development of connectivity, regional connectivity, expansion of the SCO, and the future of the organization in this very complicated international environment. So you concluded to say that Uzbekistan and Pakistan are going to further cooperate in the SCO. So thank you very much. And maybe we have some time for discussion. And Dr. Nurimbetov already told us about the new possibilities of cooperation within the framework of Pakistan, of SCO, and Tabadlab Analytical Center mentioned the possibilities of a group of 77. Maybe Dr. Mayad Yusuf can elaborate on what are the possibilities of our interaction on this issue. We know that it is a very important organization of developing countries, which is very active in the United Nations framework and cooperating with China. Do you believe that there is some potential for Central Asian countries to cooperate with this structure? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And perhaps Razak Daudzab can also speak to this, because the developing country issues, a lot of them sort of fall in the economic and commerce and trade space. Look, I mean, I think the challenge is very simple, and I alluded to this earlier when I spoke as well. We haven't been able to make connectivity of this region a truly international conversation. And the problem is essentially the politics of it, not the economic complementarity in our countries. I mean, Central Asia is landlocked. Some countries are double landlocked. Have been very eager to get to Pakistan's warm waters. Afghanistan and Pakistan have multiple agreements, in that stead. But if you look at the international politics around this issue, what do you hear? You hear Afghanistan as a country that is sanctioned and quasi-isolated. You talk about Iran. There is one conversation that has happened globally with in global fora, including the United Nations. And then you get into this conversation about India, Pakistan, and China, US, etc. So the point I was alluding to earlier as well was that it's a struggle to figure out which forums are going to be most suited to take this in a positive direction, have a real positive conversation about the importance of connectivity for human lives and livelihoods in this region, but also for global politics. Because I think there are clear incentives built into this region, given the importance that we have as independent countries and as a bloc, where everybody benefits if this region is peaceful and benefits from connectivity and economic stability. G77 is crucial. I mean, it's the countries of the developing world that play a role, have a weight, have a say, have votes in these important forums and committees. So I think absolutely. SCO, I said, is absolutely critical. But how to do that, and what conversations to have with whom, and where in those conversations there's a natural aligning of positions between Uzbekistan and Pakistan, I think we need to do more homework on that.
Thank you. Thank you. And we also maybe we can also ask Dr. Nurimbetov to inform us on Afghanistan. Of course, will be one of the point of discussion during the Samarkand summit. And is it expected that there will be some pronouncement during the summit, or maybe in the joint statement outcome policy document of the summit on this issue. This is especially important for SCO, as we already heard today from various speakers, and maybe we have some. What is your opinion on this issue? So, Dr. Nurmetov, I mean, what we all SCO countries are very. Hello?
I can hear you fine, so it may be something on his end.
Okay, I don't hear clearly. Sorry, I don't hear clearly.
Oh, yes, it's about Afghanistan. It's expected that.
Do you hear me, Excellencies? Do you hear me?
Yes, yes. And you, when I'm speaking, do you hear me?
Okay. Should I talk now? Because I didn't hear what did you say, Ambassador Kurbanov?
I just ask you to comment.
What was the point? Sorry, what was the point?
Afghanistan. What will be discussion on Afghanistan? Афганская проблема. По Афганистану.
Afghanistan?
Yes.
Afghanistan issue within the SCO or what? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let me comment. Comment this issue. You know, this is. I can say that Pakistan and Uzbekistan are very interested forward the Afghanistan issue on the agenda of the SCO2. I can say that we have no problem in this point. But, you know, there are some countries, member countries of the organization, which are not in favor to discuss this issue within the SCO. The SCO is a consensus-based regional platform. You know that very well. And that's why, in principle, the Afghanistan was and is in the system of crucial strategic priorities of Uzbekistan within the SCO2. Despite that, the lack of the consensus, I can say that we went forward on this issue because as I know, on July. We organized a very high-level international conference on Afghanistan in Tashkent, and all the member states, special envoys, high-level diplomats, international experts from majority of countries, as well as from all SCO members, took part in this conference. And the main outcome was there is a possibility to reach some consensus on post-war Afghanistan, and I think, as a chair of the SCO, Uzbekistan could make its contribution to push forward this topic within highlighting, reflecting the Afghanistan issue on the Samarkand Declaration of the SCO2. This is also a very good, I think, good achievement, despite of the difficulties that we challenge in elaborating common approach of the SCO on Afghanistan. And I hope that in coming months, not years, we can have a very good consensus within the SCO on Afghanistan. The main issue is the international recognition of this current government in Afghanistan, and Uzbekistan as well as Pakistan. We both working very closely on that, on several other multilateral platforms too. And I think this common at the end, because we diplomats should be optimistic on that. The main task of diplomacy is solving the issue, putting some aside despite of challenge, and we are still optimistic and hopeful for in this direction, because Afghanistan is a natural country of the SCO, broader SCO format. It is the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan had status of observer state of the SCO, and the main thing is to renovate this status in new circumstances and attract more closely Afghanistan on regional agenda of the SCO. It was very interesting point by the Secretary General of the SCO today, during today's briefing in Beijing. He said that we cannot reach stability and sustainable development in the broader SCO space without solving Afghanistan issue. This is true and fact, undoubtable fact that in the future SCO should take its responsibility on solving Afghanistan issue. I'm sure that we can reach consensus very soon on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nurinbetov, and it is especially important also to note you also we know that despite all these issues and challenges, all SCO countries believe that the settlement in Afghanistan is especially important for regional security. There is already consensus on this issue, and also all of them believe that the formation of Afghanistan as an independent, neutral, and peaceful state free from terrorism and narcotics will be especially important for all our countries. Thank you very much.
I would interject here, Mr. Daniyar. I think the organizers at Tabadlab are telling me that we have gone over our allotted time. If you would just say a few closing remarks now on today's session. And,
just in conclusion, let me once again thank the Tabadlab Analytical Center for facilitating our joint round table, and wish all speakers and participants success, and express hope for the continuation of our cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. And it's amazing to reconnect, and looking forward to hearing more about as we come closer to the summit and after the summit. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.